Leo, it's me. Don't you remember?
Sarah, is that really you?
Yes, it's me. I never forgot you.
I thought I'd lost you forever. I didn't know.
She wasn't on the guest list. She was standing in the rain on the bottom step of the cathedral, soaked to the bone, holding a cardboard sign with a name crossed out in red marker. She was crying so hard her whole body shook. Through the open doors, as I tightened my cufflinks for the biggest day of my life, I saw her turn her head toward me. She didn't wave. She pressed her lips together and mouthed 2 syllables. Nikki. My knees almost gave out. No one had called me Nikki in 22 years. If you've ever heard a voice from a life you thought you'd buried, you'll know what that did to me. Stick with me on this one, because the truth behind that woman shattered everything I thought I knew about the family that raised me, the woman I was about to marry, and the man I was pretending to be. The cathedral was St. Augustine, all white marble and old money. Roses spilled down the aisle in lavender and champagne. 200 guests. A string quartet. The kind of wedding that ends up on the covers of magazines nobody actually reads anymore. My name, on every program, on every silver frame, on every announcement for the past 6 months, was Daniel Edward Ashford. 31. Founder of Ashford Capital. Net worth, depending on which analyst you asked, somewhere between $4 and $7 billion. People called me the silent billionaire because I rarely gave interviews. When I did, I was polite, I was composed, and I never once mentioned where I came from. Because I didn't remember. That's the official story. That's what my mother, Victoria Ashford, told the press, the courts, and me when I was 9 years old. A fire took our house. My mother died inside it. My father died trying to get back in. My older sister, Iris, died in her bedroom at the end of the hall. I survived because a neighbor broke a window and carried me out. I was adopted 2 months later by the Ashfords. The name Daniel replaced Nikki. The past was sealed. The records were paid for. I became the cleanest slate money could buy. I ran my thumb along the cufflink as I stood behind the heavy oak doors. The sign of the woman outside still clung to my eyes like a stain. Nikki. 2 syllables. A boy's name. A name I had not spoken out loud since the night I cried myself to sleep in a stranger's bedroom in a house I didn't recognize. I almost turned around. I almost walked out the back, into the alley, climbed into my car, and drove until the roads ran out. Instead, I straightened my jacket, fixed my face into the calm, soft smile I'd practiced for weeks, and pushed open the door. The wedding march began. Lillian was waiting for me at the altar, in a gown that cost more than most people earn in a decade. White silk, hand-embroidered, cut to make her look like a statue. Her father, Richard Pierce, stood behind her in a charcoal suit, his hand resting on her shoulder as if he were the one about to be married. Her mother dabbed at her eyes with monogrammed tissues. The Pierces were old money, the kind that doesn't brag because it doesn't have to. I walked. Each step felt heavier than the last. Somewhere behind me, in the rain, that woman was still standing there, whispering a name I had been taught to forget. Victoria Ashford caught my eye from the front pew. She gave me a small nod. Encouragement. Approval. The nod she had given me at every important moment in my life. Graduations. Interviews. Every board meeting where I had to fire someone I liked. She nodded, and I behaved. I reached Lillian. She lifted the veil just enough to look at me. "You look pale," she whispered. "I'm fine. If you embarrass me today, Daniel, my father will never let us hear the end of it." Her voice was perfect, practiced. She smelled like gardenias. Her father watched us with the quiet satisfaction of a man who had just secured the deal of his life. We were about to merge Ashford Capital with Pierce Holdings. The paperwork had been signed in February. The wedding was to be the public announcement. Two dynasties, joined by one quiet man who couldn't remember where he'd come from. "Dearly beloved," the priest began. I tried to listen. I really did. But my mind kept sliding back to that sign. 2 syllables in a child's handwriting. Nikki. The priest asked if anyone present knew of any reason these two should not be joined. My mouth went dry. For one frantic second, I wanted to shout, "I do. I know a reason. I just don't know what it is yet." No one objected. We exchanged rings. Hers slid onto her finger without catching. Mine fit her perfectly. She smiled. Cameras flashed. "I now pronounce you husband and wife." She kissed me on the cheek. Polite. Brief. I kissed her back. The guests cheered. The string quartet lifted into something bright. I walked back down the aisle with Lillian on my arm, and I smiled at the right moments, and I hugged the right people, and I held her hand at the right times. But my chest wouldn't unclench. By the time we reached the black sedan waiting outside, the woman was gone. The rain had softened into mist. The cardboard sign lay crumpled against the wet stone. I almost didn't bend down to pick it up. I bent down. The sign read, in shaky red marker, "Nikki, I waited 22 years. Please." I folded it into my pocket. Lillian got into the car. She was already on her phone, scheduling the next event. I sat beside her. The door shut. The world sealed itself around us like a coffin. I didn't show her the sign. I didn't know why. At the reception, the ballroom was lit in white and gold. A tower of champagne glasses waited beside the dance floor. Our first dance was choreographed. The song was something old and French. I held Lillian at the right distance. I smiled at the right seconds. But my mother was watching me. Victoria Ashford didn't miss anything. When I clenched my jaw, she noticed. When I shifted my weight, she noticed. When I brushed my hand against my pocket to feel the folded cardboard still sitting inside it, she noticed. She excused herself from her table. She came over to me while Lillian was being pulled away by her sister for a photograph. "Daniel," Victoria said softly, "what happened at the doors?" "Nothing." "You saw someone?" "No." She studied my face. I had grown used to that look over 22 years. It was the look of a woman who had bought me, polished me, and was now inspecting me for scratches. "Lillian's father is about to make a toast," she said. "Don't do anything foolish." "What does that mean?" "It means don't tell anyone what you don't remember." She walked away before I could answer. I found an empty corridor off the main hall. I slid the cardboard out of my pocket. I unfolded it. The red marker had bled a little in the rain. 2 words. "Nikki. Please." I closed my eyes, and the past opened like a door I had nailed shut a long time ago. I was 9. The house on Howell Street had a kitchen with yellow wallpaper and a clock that didn't keep time. My father worked at the steel mill. My mother cleaned schools at night. My sister Iris was 12 and read library books on the porch because she didn't have a television. We weren't poor in the way rich people talk about poor people. We were poor in the way that meant we ate cereal 3 nights a week and shoes lasted until your toes broke through them. I loved my sister. She was the only person who ever treated me like I was smart. She used to quiz me with flashcards she had made out of grocery bags. She used to push my hair out of my eyes when I was trying to read. There was a fire on October 17th. I don't remember the date. The date is in the records. The fire started in the kitchen. My father went back in for my mother. My mother had gone back in for me. Iris was in her bedroom at the end of the hall. I was pulled out through a side window by a neighbor named Mr. Halloran. 2 months later, I was in a courtroom being told my family was gone. A woman in a dark suit cried beautifully as she explained that there had been no survivors besides me. I was placed with the Ashfords. I was renamed. I was enrolled in a school where no one knew me. I was given a bedroom with a window that looked out onto a garden instead of a junkyard. I was told not to ask questions. I was 8 when I stopped asking. By 9, I had stopped remembering. By 20, I had built a life on top of the empty space where Iris used to sit. But not completely. Some nights I would wake up reaching for a hand that wasn't there. Now I was standing in a corridor in a $1,000 suit, holding a piece of cardboard, and that hand had reached back. I went back into the ballroom. Richard Pierce stood up. He was a tall man with a smile that never quite reached his eyes. He clinked his glass. The room went quiet. "I want to say a few words about my new son-in-law," he began. "Daniel Ashford, a man of mystery, a man of vision, a man whose past is so clean it almost doesn't exist." He laughed. A few people laughed with him. "Some of you may not know," he continued, "that Daniel was not born an Ashford. He was adopted as a child. A tragedy, I am told. An entire family lost in a fire. He came to the Ashfords with nothing but a name and a future." Victoria's face went white. I felt the room tilt sideways. "My wife and I did our research," Richard said, lifting his glass in my direction. "We made sure the records were clean. We made sure Daniel's story was airtight. We made sure no one could ever trace his past to a steel town in the Midwest. Because a man with a clean past is a man a bank can trust." The room was quiet. He wasn't insulting me. He was claiming me. I stood very still. "I have here," Richard continued, "a copy of the original newspaper clipping. It mentions the names of Daniel's parents. It mentions his sister. It mentions that the sister was never found." He held up a folded yellow page. My throat closed. "He doesn't have a sister anymore," Victoria said sharply. Everyone turned. "Daniel," Richard said gently, "would you like to see the clipping?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to know. Lillian looked at me across the table. Her father was smiling. The yellow page waited. "Sir," I said carefully, "where did you get that clipping?" I kept my voice steady. 22 years of polish kept it steady. "I have people," Richard said. The room laughed again. He slipped the clipping back into his pocket. "So let us toast," he said, "to the union of two great families, to a future with no ghosts, and to a young man whose past, we promise, will remain exactly where it is." I lifted my glass. Everyone lifted theirs. I drank. I had no idea where the woman in the rain had gone. I had no idea why she had come. But Richard Pierce had just confirmed what I had suspected for a long time. Someone had paid to keep my past hidden. And that someone was sitting in my own family. The reception spun on. Toasts, dances, photographs. I had been a ghost child, raised to be a perfect ghost adult. I excused myself from the dance floor. I walked down the long marble corridor toward the service entrance. I told the doorman to let me know if anyone matching a description came back. He didn't ask which. He checked his phone and nodded. The woman matching the description was 28. Dark hair, darker than mine, pulled back in a wet knot. Brown eyes. A scar on her left wrist from a fall off a fence at age 6. Pale blue coat. No umbrella. I stood in the corridor. I waited. Every second felt like I was 9 years old again, watching a fire engine leave the street. She didn't come back. I almost gave up. I almost walked back into the ballroom and danced with my new wife and smiled for the camera and signed the merger papers in the morning and lived the rest of my life not knowing. Then I saw a security guard walking a young woman toward the side door. She was not making a fuss. She was not shouting. She was walking quietly, almost apologetically, with the strange patience of someone who had been turned away from 1,000 doors in her life. She saw me. She stopped. She didn't call me Nikki. She didn't call me Daniel. She just looked at me with the same expression I'd seen in old photographs of my mother looking at me in a hospital bed. I walked toward her. My chest felt like it had been hit with a hammer. "You can't be back here, sir," the guard said. "Let her go," I said. "Sir?" "Let her go. Now." He did. She looked up at me. She had the same scar on her left wrist. She had the same brown eyes I saw in the mirror at 25. She was older. She was tired. She was the only person I had ever felt safe with. "Nikki," she whispered. I wanted to deny it. I wanted to say, "You've got the wrong person." I wanted to be Daniel Ashford and not this trembling boy she was looking at. "Where did you come from?" I asked. My voice didn't sound like mine. "I never left," she said. "I lived in the same town for 22 years. I worked 3 jobs. I sent letters. Every year. They all came back. Address unknown." I took the cardboard out of my pocket. She had written it herself. "Why today?" I asked. "Because someone told me you were getting married," she said. "And I thought if I didn't come today, I would never come." "Who told you?" She hesitated. "Your mother." I felt the floor drop. Not Victoria, my mother. My real mother who died in the fire. Except, "She didn't die," Iris said. "She didn't die, Nikki. She was in the hospital for a year. They told everyone she died because Victoria Ashford paid them to." I couldn't breathe. "Victoria found out my mother had a sister with money," Iris said. "She called her. She told her she was going to adopt me. She told her to sign papers saying my mother and father were dead. My aunt believed her. She took the money." She signed. She disappeared. I closed my eyes. "Where is she now?" I asked. "In a nursing home in Ohio," Iris said. "She has dementia. She doesn't know my name anymore." I put my hands on my face. I was not Daniel Ashford. I had never been Daniel Ashford. I was a child who had been stolen, scrubbed clean, embedded in another life, and married off to a family that had paid to keep the truth in the dark. "Does Lillian know?" I asked. "Her father does," Iris said. "He's the one who made sure the records stayed sealed. If anyone found out, the merger couldn't go through."
I stood there for a long time. Rain had soaked into the hem of her coat. She wasn't looking at my suit or my watch or my shoes. She was looking at my hands, the hands of a boy who used to help her carry library books home from the porch. "I'm going back inside," I said. "Stay here." "Daniel." "Nikki," I said. "Call me Nikki." She didn't cry. She just nodded. I walked back into the ballroom. Lillian was on the dance floor with her brother. Richard was in the corner, on the phone. Victoria was watching the door. She saw me coming. She stood. "What did you do?" she asked. "I found my sister," I said. Her face changed. For the first time in 22 years, I saw fear in it. "You have no sister," she said. "Where is my mother?" "You don't have a mother." Her name was Linda. Linda Reeves. She worked at Poplar Steel. She cleaned the public school on Vandeventer. Her sister was named Joan. "Joan took the money you paid her." Victoria's mouth opened. Nothing came out. "Tell me the truth," I said. "Tell me now." "You will ruin everything," she whispered. "My son, my empire, everything I built, everything I gave you." "You didn't give me anything. You stole me." "Without me, you would have grown up in that town. You would have ended up at the steel mill. You would have nothing." "That was my life," I said. "That was my choice to make." A murmur had started. People at nearby tables were watching us. Richard lowered his phone. Lillian stepped off the dance floor. The string quartet stopped playing. "Daniel," Lillian said, "what is happening?" "You tell me," I said. "You knew about this, didn't you?" She hesitated. 1 second. 2. That was enough. "My father explained everything to me before we got engaged," she said. "He said you were a clean investment. He said your past was sealed. He said I shouldn't worry." "Your father bought me," I said. "He bought my silence. He bought his merger." "It's business," Richard said. He had come over now. His voice was steady. He didn't apologize. He didn't plead. He negotiated. "Walk away," he said. "Go back to the party."
Sign the merger papers tomorrow morning. The past stays buried. Nobody gets hurt. Your sister walks away with a check that will set her up for life. "How much?" I asked. "Name the number." 22 years, I said. "How many years do I name?" Richard didn't have an answer. I took off my ring. I set it on the tablecloth. I picked up the microphone from the center of the head table. The room went silent. "My name isn't Daniel Ashford," I said. "My name is Nikki Reeves. I was adopted at age 9 by Victoria Ashford. I was told my entire family was dead. My sister is alive. She is standing outside this building in a coat she's owned for 15 years. Her name is Iris. She came to wish me well. She didn't know she was crashing her own brother's wedding." I looked at Victoria. She was shaking. Victoria Ashford erased my past so she could control my future. Richard Pierce sealed my past so he could seal his merger. I have been a transaction for the entire life I was told was mine. The room went still.
Nikki, a small voice said behind me. I turned. Iris was in the doorway. Someone had let her in. She was still in her damp coat. She looked lost. She looked like she was 9. I went to her. "I'm really sorry I forgot you," I said. She sat down on the floor in the middle of the ballroom. She put her face in her hands. I sat next to her. The marble was cold. "You're late," she said. "I know." "You look just like Dad," she whispered. I felt every single year I had been away from her. "I'm sorry," I said. "I know," she said. She leaned against me. The room was still watching. The flower arrangements looked ridiculous. The chairs were too tall. Lillian walked out without saying a word. Her father followed her. Victoria sat very still. She did not cry. I held Iris's hand. Her fingers were freezing. I had been holding Lillian's hand an hour earlier, and now I was holding my sister's. I was 22 years late for this. I had spent the most important years of her life buying suits and signing contracts and pretending I had never lost anyone, while she worked 3 jobs, while she wrote letters that came back, while she waited. The string quartet began playing again, the song they had been saving for the last dance. It didn't matter anymore. We walked out the side entrance. The rain had stopped. "Thank you for not signing the merger," Iris said in the car. "Thank you for showing up," I said. She laughed for the first time in 22 years of searching. The next morning, the headline read, "Billionaire's wedding ends with family found." The second headline read, "Ashford Capital merger scrapped after adoption fraud exposed." Victoria was arrested 2 days later.
Not for kidnapping. Not technically. For fraud, forgery, misrepresentation. She was 71 years old. She didn't speak to her lawyers. Richard Pierce was investigated for his role in sealing the records. The investigation was quiet. It was thorough. Lillian returned her ring by mail. She didn't write a note. She didn't need to. I took Iris back to the house on Howell Street. It had been torn down years ago, but the block was still there. I stood on what used to be our front yard. There was a chain-link fence around what had become a parking lot for a small grocery store. "This is where the kitchen was," Iris said. She didn't need to point. I stood where my father had gone back into the house 22 years ago. I was a long time late to keep him from going in. I was a long time late to keep my mother from going in. I was a long time late to keep Iris in her bedroom at the end of the hall. I was a long time late to keep myself. But I was not too late to find her. The world was not finished unraveling. There were investigations, there were lawyers. There was a sister who would have to learn to live with me again, slowly, the way you learn to live with anyone who was once lost and is now returned. She unpacked her small bag. Inside it were 2 folded photographs. One of the family when I was 5. One of me on the day I was adopted. She had carried those photographs in her bag for 22 years. I stood in the doorway of my own house, in a life that had been built on top of a lie. But Iris was humming in the kitchen. The sound was small and out of tune. It was the same hum my mother used to make on Sunday mornings. I turned off the hallway light. I went to bed. I did not dream of fire. I did not dream of marble. I dreamed of yellow wallpaper. I dreamed of fence posts. I dreamed of porches. For the first time in 22 years, I knew which house was mine. Some names are worth waiting 22 years to hear again. Whose name would you wait 22 years to hear again?